From Marco Island, Florida, Devin Sweazy is joining the podcast. Devin, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great to have you. I'm really excited to talk about the Marco Island market. What a
Same.
special place. Really been looking forward to this conversation. Where are you from originally, Devin?
So I'm originally from the suburbs of Chicago. So I am a Midwest girl at heart. You name it. My dad's a farmer. I mean, I am your classic Midwest girl. We love city life, but we certainly, the concept of a childhood with land and, high school full of, pickup trucks out, dirt roads, all of that fun stuff. So I am a great combination of Midwest migrating to the sunny state of Florida.
I have quite a few friends here in the Charlotte market that are from Chicago as well. And it doesn't surprise me that you found your way to South Florida for sure. And I thought that I sensed a little bit of a Midwestern accent there when we were
I
speaking
hear it
before we
all
hit
the
record.
time, and I just still can't believe it because I've lived here for 13 years now, but everyone always picks up on that.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Not a bad thing. Not a bad thing at all. So what drew you originally? How long have you been practicing real estate? What drew you to this career?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this is actually phase 2 of my career. I have always loved real estate, but in my younger years, quite honestly, like anything, ego gets in the way. And in the Midwest, I simply just didn't think being a realtor was prestigious enough. It was very much working evenings and weekends. And I just thought it was better than that. So like anybody in life humbles you. So I had phase 1 of my career, which was roughly 6 years of selling Yellow Page advertising. Very much aging myself in that statement because I don't know the last time I even received a Yellow Page book or phone book. But very much the best training I ever could have had into sales. And that just really taught me the sales cycle, nitty gritty, cold calling, the ability. I always say every no gets you closer to a yes. So that was really kind of the beginning. I worked my way into that medical device field, of course, because like ego, that was prestige. That was where the money was at. That was where success was at. And I experienced tremendous success. It was beautiful and wonderful and all the things, but there was incredible burnout. I say in life, I very much am a career woman. I love working. I always have been, but I equally love being a mother. And at some point in time, that pendulum felt like I was just being pulled in too many different directions. And what I had done is I booked a last minute vacation to Marco Island. And I had told my nanny, you stay behind, you may not come with. I literally just want a week with my kids where there is no work. And we came here on vacation and absolutely fell in love. And at that point, I just said, what am I doing? I'm successful. I'm making all this money, yet I am missing waking up with my children in the morning because I'm rushing to the OR in the morning. And right then and there, I put an offer on a house while we were on vacation. I went home. I quit my job. I listed our house downtown Chicago for sale because I was raising my girls downtown Chicago. And we moved to Marco Island 4 months later for my girls to start preschool and kindergarten here. And it really was probably one of the riskiest moves I've ever made in my life. They always say the bigger the risk, the bigger the payoff. And I am a true example of that. We moved here and I continued working in the medical device field for a little bit. But it was my daughter. It was my daughter, Jaden, who one day I would drag them to open houses constantly. I just loved real estate in the market. And she heard me talking with neighbors because they mentioned somebody was coming. They were going to be looking at real estate. And I was like, oh, you have to go check out this house. It's incredible. And she's like, Mom, why aren't you a realtor? And it truly was this aha moment of like, oh my gosh, I don't have a good answer. What am I doing? That is my passion. I didn't even realize it. And so I just spent a year game planning, strategizing, getting my license, putting together a marketing plan. And I quit everything else cold turkey and fully launched into real estate. And it was by far the best career move I have ever made.
That is without a doubt one of the riskiest stories, career transitions that
Oof.
I've heard on this podcast. Very gutsy,
Very gutsy.
but I think it's awesome that on a visit to Marco Island, you thought this is where I need to be. It's funny and timely actually that you share that experience because I've recently my brokerage about a year and a half ago opened an office in Banner Elk, North Carolina, which is about 2.5 hours north of Charlotte and Lake
Mm-hmm.
Norman Market, where I'm generally based. And um, started spending last summer. My wife and I went up there, spent some time in some Airbnbs, and just fell in love with the area. So now I'm in the process of in 2026. I've been spending my time dividing my business between Banner Elk, North Carolina, and Lake Norman, North Carolina. So, and in fact, we're in the process of moving an hour closer to Banner Elk. We close at the end of this month. So, yeah, I now I'm
Yeah.
doing it a little bit more gradually than you did.
Well, remember, with risk, there is always opportunity for
Absolutely.
growth. So pursue it, chase it. There is always a way to make it happen. You just have to be creative.
It's reassuring to hear you say that too, and also to share your experience of that. How when you decided to leave your previous career and launch your real estate business, your real estate career in Marco Island, from the time you launched that, how long did it take you to build the runway, or were you transacting fairly quickly?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I want to be very candid in answering that because there is so much intimidation as a new realtor and hitting the ground running. And I think having a business plan and a strategy, I truly did take a year to read the market. And I think that was the most important decision I made. And I would sit here and tell you today, for lack of better words, it was very much an old school gentleman's club here in terms of the way real estate operated. And it was a bit intimidating, to be honest with you, of wow, how am I going to carve my path here? A market that's very much oversaturated, too. I will say that Florida has more realtors than any other state, but the vast majority of them do it as a hobby. But you have longevity, you have generational realtors, you have the OGs, right? That came when Marco Island was developed. And here I am, a newbie in the market. My network is school, my children's, parents, whatnot. I did not have a network. And I knew I was capable of success. So I didn't want to go work under another agent and build my branding under somebody else. I genuinely believed in my business plan and what I was capable of. So taking that first year to study the market and see where there was a hole, I always say there is a piece of the pie for everybody. You just have to find your niche. And so what I did is I was very strategic. I launched it like any other business though, and I really did give myself a pretty significant advertising budget. And I know I'm fortunate to do that because of my previous success. But no matter what, you really need to launch yourself. And in order to do that, it does require money. And money and launching it, I went into my first year with a $40,000 advertising budget. And because of my previous sales training, I tracked all my leads. I knew where my ROI was. Originally, I did start with Zillow leads because back then the lead generation was done very differently than it is today. And with that advertising budget, I averaged maybe 11 calls per month. And of those 11 calls, I would convert 1 to 2 to an actual customer because not all leads were qualified. It's very much a vacation transient market. So a lot of people inquire, get sticker shock, and then you never hear from them again. So taking the time to really launch myself, I needed those leads because those leads were what prompted me to research all the different condo buildings. It's what allowed me opportunities to show in condo buildings I had never been in before. So you can learn the rental rules, the pet regulations, and with everything, your education, you get more and more confident. So the biggest thing that I think any agent can do is put themselves in a situation for lead generation. That's what worked for me. And then on the second hand, other side of that equation is very much because we're a very transient market, I would say social media. So again, know your market. For me, my client base, I know that they're not all local. They're not all living here, meaning the vast majority of people nowadays do their research online. So I had to look into that. I had to figure out, how do I get a presence as a newbie that doesn't have sales or accolades or all these things to market myself? So how do you build credibility? And that was the way I went into my initial launch. And it has certainly evolved since then. But that was really year one. And it was all a numbers game. It was just about constantly having conversation so that I could learn and then appear to be more confident, more knowledgeable than I probably actually was.
A lot to unpack there, and so much of it resonates with me because I learned a lot of what you just shared the hard way and the long way, and made some of those early mistakes in not just my real estate career, but my prior business as well. 10 to 20% conversion, pretty strong on those leads, but to get those 10 or 11 leads required a $3,000 a month or greater than $3,000 a month advertising budget.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's what I've learned. And again, I learned the hard way. Most small businesses or medium-sized businesses, either one, fail because they're undercapitalized when they start.
Mm-hmm.
So they underestimate the cost and the resources they need to generate. And you
Agreed.
led with leads to generate that business. I've had a couple of brokers and agents on this podcast who have echoed the sentiment that the one thing a new agent needs to ask themselves is, how do I intend to generate business?
Mm-hmm.
How do you intend to generate those leads? So if you don't have that sphere, or you're not a generational second, third, or fourth generation
Mm-hmm.
realtor in your market, then yeah, you have to do what you did, right? You have to have a business plan, a strategy, and the capital to execute on that advertising and marketing to generate that business.
And then stay committed to your plan, because that's the biggest thing. I think oftentimes we don't see the results immediately. And so
Yeah.
then it kind of falls by the wayside. And it's the consistency, it's the repetition, it's staying visible. You really need to, in my opinion, what I've experienced tracking my advertising now is when I commit to something, I give it a full year so I can track that sales cycle and really see what my ROI was at the end of that contractual obligation. Because anything I've quit too early, what did I do? I truly wasted money. And I've gone through that. Don't get me wrong. I've certainly made mistakes in advertising. I've learned the hard way. I wanted to pursue something. I wasn't seeing any leads or any call generation for months, gave up on that. Well, then what did I do? I really didn't give myself the opportunity to track the true success of that, because they say an average, customer of ours, they need to see us on repetition. It could be 10, 11, 12 times before they start remembering who you are. And so I think it's truly staying committed to the process and not introducing all these things. In the beginning of my career, I was like a ping pong ball. I was very consistent in some things, but then as other ideas would get pitched to me or do this, I would take them on because I was like, yes, this could be a great opportunity. Then I started to be spread thin in all these different directions. As I progressed into my career, I recognized once this was my business plan for the year, I stuck with it. And when I got phone calls and other opportunities, sometimes I would say, hey, I'm actually interested in that, but this is my advertising budget for the year. I've missed that opportunity. I'm going to put you in my calendar. Let's follow up at this date so we can evaluate it for next year. But I really did make myself stop accepting other things, because you get spread too thin, and then you get the burnout of nothing's working because you're not properly tracking it.
Properly tracking it, being consistent, and being prepared to commit for a longer term than a month or two.
Yeah.
I see too many business owners, not just realtors, who give up on a strategy too quickly. Everything takes time, repetition, and it doesn't matter. I've said it many times that there's 1,000 ways to market or advertise your business, and the truth is every single one of those ways works if you do it correctly and you stick with it, right?
So true.
So just I'm a big advocate for picking one and staying committed to that strategy and doing, obviously doing it the best way you can with, and seek professional help if that's if that's necessary. But what is you mentioned social media. What are your main channels for generating new business? Whether that was early on, or things that you continue to do?
It certainly evolved. I have to say, I'm kind of that age. I have teenage daughters. So, in some regards, I feel young-ish, if you will, to introduce social media. There were elements of it that were intimidating, but in some regards, I also feel like I'm aging out of the efficiency of all the operations of how to do it. So I say that because the biggest obstacle I always hear in these conversations is the intimidation. And I will say I was very much intimidated to begin the social media, and it was time consuming. In the beginning, if I look back at the content I was pushing out in the beginning, I cringe. But at
Sure.
some point in time, you have to figure it out, you have to navigate it. And the only way to learn is through making those mistakes. So I think for me, I knew that I needed a presence. More than anything, I think consumers do a lot of online research. They are looking for information. What I found is that most realtors are actually not as much informative as they are just pushing the properties that they're listing. And the problem in doing that is that consumers crave information and they want to work with somebody that they think is valuable to them. And so, what I actually did, all of my beginning YouTube videos were primarily just information based. They were talking about some real estate terms. They were talking about the hyper local aspects of our community. And I did it as education. And then it also helped me get very comfortable in those conversations. They always say, know your elevator pitch. Same thing. What it did is it forced me to research some things that maybe I hadn't experienced yet or didn't know because I hadn't worked with a client in that particular price point or that demographic or that area of the island for us. And so it also helped me become more knowledgeable. So I strictly focused on education. And that was what YouTube, and that's still the main source of YouTube for me. I certainly do all my marketing videos in terms of marketing my listings. And when I do that on YouTube, I very much focus on the storytelling. I focus on the lifestyle as opposed to focusing on, welcome to 123 Main Street. This is a 4-bedroom. You will never hear me say anything of that nature because that's the easy stuff the consumer can find online. I need to tell them about the lifestyle. Again, this is where you're located. Where are you in relation to the airport? They want to hear information. And so that's what YouTube very much represents for me. Then my other main platform is Instagram. And Instagram is actually more my sphere of influence. So if you go on my Instagram page, it's Devin Sweazy Group. You'll see that I probably have 1,000 followers. It is not numbers to brag home to in terms of the influencer world and whatnot. But those 1,000 followers are people I have true connections with. And so what I have found there, the lead generation, has been people that have probably had great other realtors they've worked with throughout the years. Or they're people that know of me, I know of them, but we're not necessarily on friendly terms. And what it does is that platform is a way for me to show up as my authentic self. I will do stories. Sometimes I'm dressed for work for the day. Sometimes I'm sitting at my computer and I'm still in a sweatshirt with no makeup on because I show up as my authentic self. And I am a big, big believer that people connect with your authenticity naturally. So you gravitate to the people you're meant to be working with. But people do business with those that they like and trust. And so when you really just share who you are, your life, for me, I'm a girl mom. I have 3 daughters. We range from elementary to high school. You connect with your audience base just being authentic and sharing your lifestyle, what you're doing for work for the day. And so that really was more the connection, if you will, with people. It's what gave me credibility. So if somebody had a referral and said, oh, you need to talk to Devin, she's your person, and then they start following you online, they just see the way that you're working every single day. Because I promise you, a lot of realtors don't put the time in. If I don't have a full day of appointments, I'm still working all day and I'm sharing with you what I'm doing. I am building credibility. And so that platform feels very different in that way to me. And what it's doing is it's helping secure that referral or that person that's on the cusp of thinking, I wonder if I should consider reaching out to her. That's what that has been. But there are people that are all still in my network that are local, that hear and know of you, but it's just the reassurance.
That, so again, so much to unpack. This is turning into such a masterclass. I absolutely love everything you just touched on
Thank
there.
you.
I want to just recap a little bit. YouTube and Instagram are your main digital channels. I 1000% agree that Instagram is a great place to nurture your sphere. Um, Not necessarily a great place to generate or leads or new business from outside your sphere.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's a big, and that again, not an expert, but well, I kind of am, but, but, maybe I just, I have this thing about social media in general that, of course I participate and, I put some effort into my social media marketing as well, but I truly lean on it more as it's a very similar way that you do, and that is to nurture my sphere. Most of the people who follow me on Instagram and Facebook know me. I have and anyway, so but I love the value of YouTube. I think YouTube is an amazing place to to demonstrate your expertise, to provide value for folks who are outside of your sphere, both locally, but
Mm-hmm.
also more importantly, I think nationally and globally. So many home buyers, especially in the luxury market, not all luxury, but I would say, the more premium the real estate, um, uh, the more premium properties or market or category, they're doing more research on Google and YouTube, and they're watching the longer form content.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I also agree too. So I've had locally, I produce two YouTube channels, one here in the Lake Norman area of Charlotte, and one in Banner Elk, North Carolina, and mostly real estate content. Although I am leaning more into local lifestyle stuff, that's something I really need to improve. So I'm glad
Mm-hmm.
that you brought that up too. Um, but the I get comments once in a while when I'll do a preview, a tour, a 10 or 12-minute tour of a waterfront home here on Lake Norman that's a new listing or on the market. And I don't go into specs, right? Or details
Exactly.
when I'm in the video. I just kind of share like the feeling, the experience, the lifestyle of, and I'll get comments once in a while on the videos. I don't know if you do too, where they'll
Sure.
say, you didn't say how many bedrooms there were, or, you didn't, you didn't show the garage.
Yep,
So
absolutely. But the point is, they're watching and there's engagement. So it's a great
absolutely.
opportunity to lead right into conversation.
It's also a great, great to underscore how important it is to be committed and to work consistently on those platforms, because I mean, it took me 2 years of YouTube content before someone reached out
I was
through my
just
YouTube.
going to say that the consistency, I did not get my first YouTube lead. Somebody who genuinely told me they found me on YouTube for 2.5 years.
Hmm.
2.5 years. And
Absolutely.
even today, if you look at my YouTube channel, I think I only have like 130 followers. It's
Mhm.
nothing special, but I don't care about the followers. I'm not in the influencer world. That does not matter to me. I am in the education world. So when a consumer is researching online, I want my content to appear for them. Now I am averaging I'm at the point now where I get about 4 closed transactions per year. It's not a wild number. But those are closed, right? So I should probably look at the other side of the statistics. How many are still open leads from that? My average price point in my market is 1.8 million. So you look at those 4 closed transactions, you're talking roughly $7.5 million of closed volume from that. It is more than worth my time and money to continue to educate. But then you're also building this book of business because you are building your online presence, which is improving your SEO. In the world of AI, we have to acknowledge that all of that content is building your credibility. So to me, YouTube is the one that a lot of people give up on because it's time consuming. If you're smart, you utilize your YouTube for all your other social platforms as well. You figure out how to cut it down and multi-purpose it. but it is not something that generates just call after call after call. So you have to know that is a long-term commitment, but it is your storefront. Think of how many businesses have to pay rent to a physical storefront so people can see you. To me, that's what YouTube represents.
I couldn't agree with you more. You brought up, you mentioned SEO and AI, two areas that I focus extremely heavily on, and have and it continues to the strategy continues to evolve, or how
Yes,
we
hard to
navigate
keep up
this.
with.
It is, but it's so important. I found that the leads, the business that comes from YouTube, from SEO, from AI, are so valuable. These are intelligent, thoughtful buyers usually, and
Very
sometimes
savvy.
sellers, very savvy. Yeah. And if you look at why they're leaning so much to AI search, very much the same reason why business owners like us and professionals are leaning into AI. And that's because you can be so detailed and specific with your prompts.
Hmm.
And so when I receive a call from someone who found me through chat or Grok or Claude, I'll always say, well, how did you find me? And they're always very excited to reveal that how they found me through AI search. And they'll even remember almost exactly the prompt. And it's always a long tail prompt. It's always like,
Hmm.
here's who I am, here's what we're looking for, and here's what the agent should know and have experience with, and blah blah blah. I mean, we're talking sometimes multiple sentences
Yes.
in this search prompt.
It breaks it
So
down
yeah.
so specifically. It is amazing. It will know your entire buyer profile, your seller profile, who you are as an agent, what your specialties are. They get specific, and those
Mhm.
tend to be the most qualified leads that you will have.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's almost like uh, it's darn near as good as a referral.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
You know?
The conversion rate is very high.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that as well. Getting back to followers on Instagram, yeah, I think social media is important, especially for nurturing. My personal philosophy is for just showing your sphere, showing up for your sphere. It's also, look, it's a good place to participate because those who connect to you through SEO or YouTube or AI search may also look for you on social media. So it's good to show some recent activity there. But I don't think, as far as generating new business, it's super valuable. I think that folks, what I've found, realtors, and I know a lot. I know a lot of agents and brokers, and the ones with the most followers tend to. I don't think it has anything other than entertainment or aspirational content.
Hmm.
So, um, and they're doing a great job. I get it, but I would really love to see specific examples of how 120,000 followers on Instagram is winning you business.
Hmm.
I,
I
I I would
agree.
I would love to see proof of that.
Because
So
sometimes too, it's almost like that image that they're creating is more the focus than showing up authentically in who you are. And
right.
I think about how much time is pumped into that versus the revenue generating activities we need to be doing. And maybe it's out there, maybe it works. I just haven't seen where in my brain that is justified, that would be the focus.
I agree. And if someone's listening and or watching on YouTube and you have 50,000 or 100,000 followers, and
Please tell us, give us the
please tell us.
information.
Yeah, yeah. Shoot me an email. Let's get you on the podcast. Please share your story. I would love to, and prove me wrong. Uh, please feel free. Devin, we're pushing 30 minutes. I only asked you for 30 minutes. Again, I feel like we could go on and on. What a masterclass this 30 minutes has been. We didn't even really talk much about the Marco Island market. Uh, Before I let you go, let me ask you, what are some, you mentioned the average transaction there. Obviously, Marco Island's an affluent community, generally speaking. What's your wheelhouse or area of expertise? Who do you work best with?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, generally speaking, we are a second home market. We are very, very transient. We're very seasonal here. We've certainly, since post COVID, you've seen our full time population grow. But nonetheless, I would say, whether you're luxury as a beachfront condo or you are a waterfront property on a canal for boating, at the end of the day, we're only 4 by 6 miles. So we are very, very tight community. And with that, scarcity has become probably the biggest point of our conversation when we're talking real estate. So you have very affluent clients, whether they're buyers or sellers. They're very savvy. We are very Midwest based here. We certainly have a huge following that comes from New York, New Jersey. I mean, we're a little bit all over. But I call Marco Island an island of entrepreneurs. So while we're luxury, it's not snooty or bougie. It's generally hardworking, average people that have worked to get to this place in retirement. And when you've worked so hard to get to this place where you are buying or selling, wherever you are, this multi-million-dollar property, I think one of the biggest things that I have learned is that time is more valuable than anything else to them. And so when we talk about those two facets, I say scarcity because we are close to being landlocked. And so there are certain features. It's kind of like a luxury real estate is similar to a luxury car, right? If you list a Ferrari for sale, it doesn't necessarily sell immediately because factors matter like color, mileage, history. Luxury real estate works exactly the same way when you are in this very finite landlocked area. So you have age of construction, elevation, location. I always say location, but location here is bigger than anything. That coveted sunset exposure for your rear exposure, that's what everyone is after. There will be a premium paid for that. But then you tie that back to the concept of time. Time is money. And when you get to a certain phase of life, you can confidently say, or you're willing to pay a premium because you know that you appreciate your time or it's effectively used elsewhere. My typical client depends on me in more ways than ever to help manage all of these vendors, the remodels, the this, the that. So from the buying side, they're going to pay a premium for a home that is what we call turnkey, move in ready. They do not want to come for their 3 months maybe that they're going to stay here, or when they pop in and out. They don't want to deal with remodel work. They don't want the headache. They don't want the time, the babysitting. So there's a premium to be paid for that in addition to the location. And then on the flip side of that, time also that represents the work you put in as a realtor if you are working with the seller. The sellers likely are not in the market. I mean, I cannot tell you how many listings I've had that from first conversation to close, that seller never even came back to the property. So what are you selling? I'm not just selling my services, I'm selling time. It's wild to think about, but in our market, that it becomes a value point. So when you go in and you do your listing consultation and you talk about this is our to-do list, this is what we need to do, these are my vendors, these are the quotes, do I have approval to move forward? That's very much how my conversations go. And then you're building trust, right? These clients trust you. I'm not an order taker. I share information that is of value. I'm not making these recommendations just because they're justified for the results we're looking for. And then from there, they trust you and they say, great, Devin, go ahead. You have my approval to do that. And it's working with all these vendors. So we are successful in presenting a property that is what we refer to as turnkey, move-in ready. So time. It is the biggest value point in our conversations, and then location.
Such a good point to just to drive home the value that a luxury homeowner, a luxury home buyer puts into their time, the value of their time. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And again, other things to as well unpack there. I would love to be a fly on the wall during your listing presentation. I bet that's just spectacular. I know, so I work mostly with buyers and in the luxury space, but also, not as well. Obviously, I'm happy to help a family who wants to relocate and or something like that. But most of my business has been generated through SEO and AI search and YouTube, and it's generally buyers who seek me out who are coming from other areas of the country. And I would I list a home? Absolutely. I've listed homes, but I think that a lot of agents underestimate the amount of effort, planning, time, and money it takes, the financial
Significant.
resources, yeah, to prepare a home, to first of all to earn the business, then prepare the home for sale, and then to market that home. Tens of thousands can
It's
be
incredible.
invested.
I put more time into listings than I do into buyers. And if you have a lot of conversations with realtors, they're always going to say, your goal is to be listing heavy, because then the buyers come to you. They phrase it. They make you feel when you're first starting that's if you have all the listings, that's when you can just sit back and relax and let the leads come to you. I don't know if the industry's changed since I've gotten into it, but I don't find that to be the case. I work way harder on obtaining a listing, not only getting the opportunity to sit in front of them and make my presentation. That's just part one of it. But then when you actually secure that listing, the work that goes into the prepping, the presentation, the overall sales of presenting that property, knowing the inventory and the competition, and walking through all of the different potential discussions for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I think also well, we could go on with that conversation. Yeah. I don't want to drone on. Gosh, I'm so tempted to share a few of my own personal experiences, but I'll do that another time.
Well, part two coming soon.
Part two, absolutely. Would love to have you back, or maybe, maybe Jeff will just part two on his own sometime, but I love to have you back anytime, Devin.
Oh, thank you for having me.
For listeners who have clients who are interested in the Marco Island market, how can they learn more about you and connect with you?
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Love followers, because education, as always, is the key. So if you are on YouTube, you're going to follow me at Moving to Marco Island. And if you are on Instagram, Facebook, any of the other platforms, it's going to be under Devin Sweazy Group.
I'll have those links and names, of course, in the description for this episode. We'll tag you on social media, of course, Devin Sweazy, Marco Island, an epic agent indeed. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.